Hey, I'm Björn from Highfinder. You're watching the podcast The Hydrogen Leader. In this episode, I'm speaking with Professor Christopher Hebling from Fraunhofer. He is a world-class academic leader in the field of hydrogen, and he shares what it takes to shape the global energy system.
Yeah, it's such a tremendous effort because speed is what matters.
On top, he explains his approach to leadership.
People make the difference, and I want to find the best ones.
And we will learn about his habits, how he grew as a professional, and how he's keeping up to date with all the relevant developments.
I'm a night shift person.
So, we hope you like the episode. Stay tuned. Welcome, Professor Christopher Hebling. I'm very happy to have you here in our podcast, The Hydrogen Leader.
Thank you very much, Björn, to have me. I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you. As you know, with this podcast, we do not only speak about the technical or economic topics in the hydrogen economy, or we also want to tell stories about leadership and how you became so successful. And I noticed that you are sitting in 14 board positions. You have an extensive career in academics, hundreds of publications, and many people see you as a very impactful professional. Please help us. Who is Professor Hebling?
Well, that's probably the most difficult question we'll have in the next hour. Let me tell you, I was practicing Zen meditation for like 10 years. I was in a monastery for intense retreats for a month. And one of the exercises, after 12, 14 hours of sitting, we sat, and one person is just asking the question, who are you?
After 14 hours.
Yes, and then you start talking nonsense, or oh, I'm this and that, and so, and the other person only repeats, who are you, for 1 hour. So, and then you notice, what is it, so you get totally confused.
What is the core? What is the core?
What's the core? So the core is, that's of course a difficult question. I would say I'm a curious person. Mm-hmm. I'm highly energized, which makes me, that's a drive for everything. Mm-hmm. I like to be with people. Mm-hmm. People motivate me. They drive me, and of course, nice people, mostly.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm also, I would call myself a international person. Yeah. So the diversity is that really inspires me to be in Africa, or in Japan, or wherever else in South America, and talking to people with different backgrounds, cultures, religions. That inspires me, and it happened to be that I'm now more on the technical side as a scientist. I'm a physicist.
Yes.
But finally, I really, together with people, I want to work on solutions for problems of society.
Yeah. Is that the one thing that you would say you are passionate about, to make an impact for the better to society, or what would you pick if you would have to choose one thing that stands out?
I grew up with I was part of a youth organization, and there it was, we belonged to the Catholic Church, so the intellectual arm, so to speak, of the youth organizations, and their social responsibility was the biggest topic. That's how I grew up, to make an impact, to societal needs. Yeah. And that's still what drives me, because we have so many things to solve, and the world is so unequal at the moment in each respect. And energy is one of the topics which are really getting out of control in these days. So therefore, I'm well positioned as a physicist in the energy field. But this is what...
Can you share with our audience, because I once learned, in order to understand somebody's views, you first have to understand the person. You are a very global player. So if you can shortly outline the engagement that you have, because they span not only in Europe and Germany, but they are all over the world, right? Where are you really involved already?
Well, after a while, I started for 10 years in working in photovoltaics, and
Yes.
after a while, I noticed that the global energy system transformation towards sustainability, now called net zero, it's such a complex task. I feel at home as a physicist, I like complex systems, but it only can work when the whole value chain and when all societies in the whole world and all stakeholders work together. Stakeholders, I mean by of course, the academies, they provide solutions, but then it comes to politics. They set the framing for industry, for people, and for everything, that a new market can grow. Then we need industries, which, of course, have to survive. They have to make profit to have their raison d'être. And finally, the fourth sector is capital, because there are so many. I mean, there is a lot of money out flowing globally. It has to nucleate at the right positions, and so all those four sectors have to really interact closely, trustfully, and internationally. So that's what I noticed over time. So that only if this work, because everyone is used to live and think in silos. As a physicist, I could have an easy life just doing physics or
the one where you feel
chemical
comfortable.
engineering or something, teaching and so on. So that's good. I mean, we need that, But in order to have an impact to society and to the world, you have to talk to industry to pick up, inventions, for example. So, and with Fraunhofer, we are somewhere in between the worlds. But we also have to talk to politics, because first of all, politics is technology agnostic. So they have no own agenda. They just want to see things moving and solve issues, And then finally, the same is true for the capital market, So the investors, both private, public investors, and once again, there are like the family offices. They also have their missions and visions and so on. So they want to nucleate their money. They don't want to just spend it that it's gone. So they want to, of course,
as well.
And low carbon is like in each agenda. So that's why I'm totally convinced that we have to think big. That's the first mantra. And second, we have to work together, trustfully. Over the cultures and the different backgrounds of societies. And that's why I'm in this boards, as you say. For example, very important is the International Energy Agency. They work through TCPs, technology collaboration programs. And each country has one seat or 1+1 seats. And I'm co-chair of the hydrogen TCP in the IEA. That's an important one, because IEA is bringing together all the data, first of all, and make suggestions to the governments. Also important is that's a format which was founded by Prime Minister Abe in Japan in 2019, when Japan had the presidency for the G20 countries. And he was a visionary, so I liked him a lot. I met him twice, and he started the RD20 format. Which means that from the G20 countries, the leading institutes should work together on all kinds of sustainable energy technologies. And ever since that developed, so the first meeting was in 2019, as I said, and then there was COVID a little bit, but ever since there's a working platform. So we started, I'm in the advisory board, I have this, so to speak, the German seat in this RD20 platform, and bring together the leading research organizations of the G20 countries, which have, I think, 85% GDP, global GDP. I mean, this is a workforce. And so that's the idea of this format. And I am really happy to be part of that, and meeting, of course, all the bright guys from the other countries. And we started a summer school, annual summer school, and exchanging people for capacity building. But first of all, in this year, South Africa is the G20 chair. We really want to, and I'm passionate about this one, that the leaders of the respective nations, they will hear from us, there is a really strong workforce from the academic side, that we enable solutions which others have to fulfill and perform, so especially politics, Of course, now we have special boundary conditions. Probably US will not even attend this year. I mean, that's something which we probably cannot neglect at the moment, that there is some shift. But nevertheless, RD20 is a very important format as well.
Yeah. Please do me a favor and subscribe to our channel. If you like the content, it helps a lot to grow the channel. Thank you very much. So over the years, as I grew as a professional and I only have a corporate career before my entrepreneurial role, more and more I come to the conclusion that you can have bright concepts, make nice PowerPoints, but at the end of the day, you need to talk to the right people. And when I hear all the connections that you have on this highest level, is that also your view that even if ideas are bright, if they do not make it to the right people, they will not have an impact? Are you trying to make an impact with a bright mind, but with important connections in the world? What is your view on that?
That's exactly right. Yeah, I'm just a simple professor, so my impact is limited, very limited. But on the other hand, as you said, 5 years ago I started the Freiburg Energy Talks. That's exactly addressing this need to bring together leaders and visionary strategists from all over the world in a very small number. 35 is maximum, 40 is the limit, for 1.5 days, and think beyond the silos. Because every politician belongs to a party, someone from Colombia thinks, okay, Colombia is the center of the world, and an industry person, ThyssenKrupp, the CEO and chairman, was with me. Of course, he thinks of his 100,000 employees. So we are all in, and I think, okay, I need more money for research. Everyone is in a silo. But if we are in a room similar to this one, the Chatham House rules and so, and listen, so we're 40 decision makers of the top level. And this year, probably from L&T, he has 100,000 employees. From India, he will come, and from Asia, Japan. I mean,
that's impressive.
People are coming because they say that's unique. So usually such people come, give opening statements, and then they disappear again.
Exactly, yes.
And with me, they have to stay, and they have to be also part of a workshop. They have to be on a board and write down their thoughts and whatever. So they are on one level, And I had state secretaries from the UAE and everything, but this is exactly based on the thinking we need more impact, and those people, they have impact, they make decisions every day with their companies or with their parties or whatever, and capital flow once again, So if you have a strong like the state funds, I go to Saudi Arabia pretty often in these days, the PIF, they have a trillion, to operate, and if
they are spending it, right?
They're spending it, and
also on the energy transition, right?
Absolutely, yes. So really, they have to work on their image a little bit, but we have to really listen carefully what they want to do. They want to change their society within one generation, from fossil to non-fossil to regenerative, technologies, and they spend billions, like Aqua Power, they have already spent 80 billion. They have 80 billion assets on seawater desalination as well as wind and solar, and they just do it. And they want to triple in the next couple of years to 250 billion. Imagine a single company in Germany who has such ambitions,
I think, putting myself in the shoes of our listeners, this is a world normal people normally will never get into, And I would like to ask you more for a personal side. Can you share a situation where you felt, okay, people are asking now an important question to me, Professor Hebling, and what I will say will have a big impact to something. Was there a situation where you felt this way, that this is now something where you have to place your words with caution beyond the normal level? Can you share such a situation?
Yeah, once at the COP28 in Dubai, ThyssenKrupp had a top event when they invited the CEOs of their partners and customers from the region, but also globally. And 5 CEOs from ThyssenKrupp Decarbon were there, and of course the chairman himself, and so on. And there were like 100 top decision makers sitting there, also from the UAE, of course, and I was invited to give a keynote lecture.
Right.
I had time, 45 minutes, to really describe the situation from A to Z. And they listened to the last minute. Yeah. No one fell asleep or took out his cell phone or something. And afterwards, I mean, even months later, so people talked about that. And so that made me, of course, proud in a way, but also I felt the words were taken very well. So everyone noticed about the urgency of speed, the importance of the decisions they all will make. There was a state secretary of the Ministry of Energy there of the UAE, for example, and they were just in the phase of announcing their hydrogen strategy as an example, and many others, So, and that's probably my place, because I have 30 years of experience both in the electron world as well in the hydrogen world. Yeah. And we have a cluster of excellence at Fraunhofer called Cluster of Excellence Integrated Energy Systems, where all the bright minds of Fraunhofer work together. What is an integrated energy system? Because all the components have to interact, electrons, molecules, and storage, and transport, and all that, And so therefore, I'm in a good position to explain things,
You mentioned this is your position, thinking about leading people and leading opinions or generating opinions. Do you perceive yourself as a leader? And how would you describe your leadership principles that you try to adhere to in your daily profession?
That's an important one because people make the difference. And it starts from hiring people. And then how you treat them during the time you're working with them. First of all, I'm not different than anyone else. I want to find the best ones. So therefore, I'm always involved, and I was always involved with the decision making of any position. Maybe not master students, but more serious, long-term positions. And I try to see the overall person, not just marks and he's good in
not
this
and
that
or
something.
CV
is an entrance fee, so to speak,
yes.
But then of course. I look very much on the motivation of people, and my role as a leader is keeping up the motivation and nothing else. So because if you let them run, they will run.
Okay.
And they don't. Sometimes they might need guidance, but they don't have to report all the time. So that makes people small.
Yes.
My boss needs a report again. So I never asked for reports. But I'm.
So you're more a coach.
Very much so. So I if I'm sure that I found the right person, so then I'm sure it will develop to the best of the company or institute for himself and for our relation. What's important is being available. If they have needs, I'm available pretty much 24/7. So
it's crazy because I'm managing my little business here, and we are also trying to make an impact. But with all the meetings that you are having, how do you keep up with all the developments? Do you have a staff that say, hey, you're going in this board meeting, you need to look at that before? Or how do you keep up with all the relevant developments? Or are you really this 24/7 guy who can soak up all the new developments?
No, I wouldn't call it myself. I mean, I have some bad habits, I would say.
Okay.
So, and one is in the morning when I'm in bed, the eyes half closed still. So I look through all the, what came in through the night.
Okay.
And I'm a night shift person.
Oh, okay.
I like to work from whatever 10 to 1 or sometimes
really?
2 in the night, because then I'm on my own, so I just do my stuff. And daytime, of course, a lot of traveling, meetings, and this and that, but the nighttime is important for me, and that's how I try to keep up. Yeah, I wouldn't say I do keep up with all the developments. It's just too much, and there's so much valuable information out, and when you're in all this social media formats, I mean, you get crazy over time. But something I haven't found a good way also to stop that, and to think.
It's very tempting. Yeah?
Right. I have my racing bike, and now since the weather's getting better, so I like to spend time in the Black Forest. Yeah, that's a time without digital media. But other than that, so
One thing that I don't want to miss is I noticed in your career that you made this shift from solar to fuel cell. What was the triggering event to go for this industry? Because I think you are educated and have been very successful with physics already. Was there a special moment that you say, I need to change, or was it just an opportunity coming along?
Yeah, that's I remember well. So after my PhD, and it went well, I could decide to move on in my career. I did thin film crystalline silicon solar cells. Was a very special topic, because usually you need a certain thickness in silicon for light trapping, to get the electron hole pair formation. And so I got a nice offer from the US and make some money. But at this time, PV was very small still. The biggest market was, the small modules on the parking meters, in order not to open the street. They had a small module that was a market, people talked about. But energy-wise, it wasn't neglectable. So, but nevertheless, I thought once... if we really think that PV will have a global impact in the next decades, we need a molecular equivalent, and this can only be hydrogen, because at the time, and that's still the case, 80% of our energy system is molecules, oil, gas, and coal. It's still the case, and 20% is electricity.
Yeah, it's quite misleading, right, in the public perception.
Yeah, when I came here this morning, so I got the message in the news, 60% last year was green electricity.
Yes.
And I mean, that's great. It's wonderful. It's a big achievement, and we still have a stable grid and everything, But we should not we shouldn't forget that electricity is only 20% of the overall energy we need for transportation, for industry, for heating, and all that. That's why it's so important. To continue to go to 100% green electrons, but what do we do with the other 80%? How do we heat our houses and transport our vehicles and ourselves, and the high temperature processes, and how we store energy and all that. And at the time I thought, the whole picture is both electrons and molecules, and so I switched to hydrogen. At that time it was again neglectable. So the biggest excitement was the A-Class from Daimler, so fuel cell cars and so, and we know the story till now. But it was, it was 10 tough years, because it was called early markets, and
you were an enthusiast.
Portable energy, for cell phones. We had developed a small methanol fuel cell for devices, in
Okay,
the milliwatt or watt range and so on. And
yeah.
it's only like 5 years old now that we have this, let's call it excitement on hydrogen as the vector for a global energy transition. It's well understood, and there are like nearly 70 national hydrogen strategies written from 70 states, obviously, and all saying similar things, not the same. Each market is different, from the boundary conditions and so on, and the ambitions and so on. But if you want to achieve net zero, and basically 100% of all states signed the Paris Agreement, yes, net zero by the mid-century or 2060, 70 at the latest. And that can only be achieved with molecules which are generated somewhere where no one lives, but only the sun shines or wind blows. And with this, you can first produce molecules. Hydrogen is one, but derivatives are the others, longer chain molecules. And then you transport it and squeeze it into the same regime as we have it now with the fossil energy carriers. You only switch the nature of the molecules from underground, you dig it up, as we do now, to above ground. These are converted molecules based on water, sunshine, and if you have carbon source, then you go for methanol and jet fuels and all that.
No, this is, I think you're already talking molecules. Thank you for a perfect handover, because I in my preparation, I think I noticed that despite all the stuff that you are also doing, you are trying to really shape a global energy system, right? And I found an article where you said you cannot think small in energy solutions, right? So can you explain in an understandable way the vision that you have? How will the energy come to Europe, and how is the system to be designed?
First of all, it will be a peaceful coexistence between electrons and molecules. That's the first important statement, because people think, and even, sectors think that they are competing. They're not. So whatever you can make use of with electrons, do it at the site, at the time when they're generated. The issue is only, it's the limitation when it's dark and no wind, there's zero renewables. You cannot do anything about it. During that time, you need something. You can store electrons, but also just to a certain extent. If it, economically, let's say. And so therefore, it's a peaceful coexistence. Second, try to develop 100% regions wherever you can. And that's
what
happening.
Do you mean regions?
Yeah, 100% region means that regions of whatever.
Like northern region, which is produced.
No, it's smaller. Like 10, 50, 100 kilometers in diameter. Such regions, because many regions have biomass, for example. They have a certain wind capacity and solar in all cases. Maybe they have a run of river or something. So if you combine all that, so then they could in general be able to have all their needs covered by renewables over the year, with all whatever is available, with all the storage, both electrons, batteries, but also with an electrolyzer making the hydrogen for seasonal storage.
So if I understand you correctly, focus on generating autark local energy hubs.
Right.
And if you build many of those, they will connect at a certain point.
Over time,
that's
grow.
The way how you see the growth.
Yeah, that's there's a merit order.
Right.
The regions should, and they do have ambitions towards this direction.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Especially if you include the people. So that's what we talked about. If people see the advantage, so my region, my home,
is
so
fully
to speak, is covered. We don't depend on whatever source.
They are proud
so
then, right?
They can be proud, and if they are part of the business case, then even
better. Even better. Yes.
And indeed, such regions will. We already have such regions that will grow and that will connect, and all those. But second, we have industrial centers, and we are still an export nation, lucky enough, you know. So therefore, we need just tremendous amounts of energy, and the end energy consumption is more or less the same today as compared to 1990. We still have like 2,000. Now we have 2,350 terawatt hours. In 1990, it was 2,500.
Oh, really?
Okay. Hours, terawatt hours. You know, it's about the end energy is about the same. But the primary energy went down, so we would use less coal and natural gas. So, but what I want to say is that about at least 50%, some say even 60 or more, of the energy we have to import from somewhere. Because if we want to keep our standards, and we have 50 million cars on the streets, and if we want to produce steel and so on, aluminum, and if we want to have our chemical industry like BASF and Evonik and so on, if this is the case, we need to import energy, and this can only be energy which is produced, as I said, above ground, not non-fossil origin, which is produced somewhere and which is integrated in all the value chains, and of course into the vessels and pipelines and so on. So we do need both. And people have to understand that we need both, and that's not competing with each other. Yeah, it's such a tremendous effort, because the challenge is so big. Because speed is what matters. Speed matters, you know. So we cannot think of a energy system in 2100 or something, 2100. We need to have a very fast speed of transformation.
And you mentioned this G20 format that you are in, and I think you're on a board which is dealing with renewables, so those people might go all in one direction. But geopolitically, we are currently seeing, in my view, a divided world. Some countries or regions are pursuing the energy transition with real efforts, whereas other regions, you have the feeling they go backwards to fossil fuels. And one of the very famous developments I think we have seen in the US with Donald Trump, and he exited the Paris Climate Agreement in one of the first months of his term. And he also issued an executive order on US energy dominance. And when you read that, you have the feeling, okay, this is all about selling oil and gas. What is your view on these initiatives? They are somehow countering what you are trying to achieve, or how do you see it?
That's exactly the case.
Okay.
I wish the election would have had different results. But now we have to sit down and take a deep breath and see what's the challenge, but what is the opportunity out of that, you know. And of course, it's a disaster. It's nothing else than a disaster. It's not only the energy realm, it's everything. It's targeting the whole value system. 2 of my 3 kids live in the US, one in San Francisco, one in New York. And what they say, I mean, they're still in the academic world, like a PhD in San Francisco. And the lab mate of my oldest daughter, she just got a single note. She was under this diversity, equity, and inclusion program funded by that. She just got a note. This will end as for now.
Wow!
So immediately. So she came from abroad, and so she had zero money overnight. You know, something like that. So it's affecting the life of all people in the US. There are some winners, of course. You know, and that's oil and gas business. So therefore,
it's a disaster.
It's nothing less than that, you know.
Hearing what you said earlier, I have the feeling the people that you work with, you trust each other very much. You speak very open. On the headlines in the news, you have the feeling trust is over. So I guess your layer of leadership is needed to keep the world connected. Is that important, that you still have people in the US that believe in what you have worked on for a decade?
Absolutely. That's really something I learned over the decades I'm traveling.
Yeah.
You have to distinguish between the governments and the people under the governments, you know.
Yes.
Like Iranian people are the nicest people on the globe, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you shouldn't confuse this silly government
Yeah.
with the people who are suffering under this government. And
Yeah.
With the U.S., of course, the brightest people are in the national labs and in all this university, the professors there. So they're true role models, you know. They're unbelievable, highly selected and dedicated and so on. And so they suffer like crazy now because they get all their fundings taken away. My second daughter studied at Columbia.
Right.
And they just got 400 million cut because they were not with
on the
all
list
this,
also
with the Palestinian and you know Gaza things, and so overnight, you know, and that's such a misuse of power, and I don't know where we will be in 4 years. It's totally open, so but the world will be in a different order and shape and everything.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, what keeps me going and is the hope that Europe has the right answer, and that brings us together as a community.
Yes.
Because I mean, it's happening already. I hope at the right speed and the right level of dedication.
Ursula von der Leyen announcing this clean industrial. So this is a good thing. And do you think that this was a missing element so far? Was it needed, or is it just a message we are still on it?
Yeah, the reaction is bold and brave.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite happy how things go. And also in Germany, I mean, Germany is the third largest economy in the world.
Exactly.
And if you read the newspaper and you talk to people, you think you're in the third world country. Here nothing is working and blah, blah, and so on. Third largest economy, larger than Japan and all the others, you know. Yeah. And so therefore, we should really work hard to make an impact also to the world as Germany, as part of Europe. Yeah. And there is no way backwards, you know. I mean, fossil fuels are limited, and there is no common sense that we have to go back now to fossil fuels. This era is over.
What comes into my mind, as you know, I talked also to Yorgo Chatzimarkakis, and he said, we should not underestimate that Europeans can be quite inspiring to others. And I think we as Germans are not the biggest speakers on stage, but I think people also look to our country and what we do. And I think this is also a power that we might have to inspire through actions.
That's exactly true, because especially Germany has a good reputation because we are not the juggernaut in the world, you know. So we tend to be silent and a bit underestimated, maybe. But a friend of mine in Abu Dhabi, for example, he called me after the election and he said he couldn't sleep because he was...
The US election or the German one?
No, the German election.
The German
election, in UAE.
Yes,
Wael is his name. And because he said it's so important that Germany stays on track and that there is a good government with the right values and the right decision-making and so on. And he thinks that, I mean, we're on the right track still. And now the world is looking at Germany. And therefore, the 500 million, a billion, excuse me.
It's great.
These are, I mean, whatever is the true outcome. So, but the message was right because it says, yes, we are on track, you know, and we can make a difference.
You're talking yourself into it because we most likely will have Friedrich Merz as our new chancellor. And if I ask you, what would be the one or two things that you, as an academic advisor with a voice to be heard, would recommend that he should not forget with his administration to really work on to keep track in this energy transition?
Well, first of all, just before Christmas, there was a so-called Berlin Energy Dialogue event. It was an evening event with Friedrich Merz.
Okay.
And 50 top managers from industry were invited. I think I was the only researcher, but that was an interesting format, I must say. So
you were invited to a lot of interesting events.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, and it was nearly 3 hours event. Friedrich Merz gave a half an hour introduction about his thinking. He felt very safe because it was Chatham House, and I won't, of course, release details. But what I was really impressed, the level of details he knew in the energy system, because after half an hour it was Q&A.
Okay.
And you can imagine all the CEOs from E.ON and so on. So they had their questions,
right,
and recommendations and so on. And he was listening carefully. And afterwards he really said, I took a lot out of this meeting. So, and of course he had.
So you're
his
confident
advisor.
in his government, but what would you give him? Or there is no advice needed if I hear this?
No, well, I wouldn't call it. No, from the first consultation paper, which was released a couple of days ago, I again was a bit disappointed by the level of reforms, which are
not ambitious enough.
It's not ambitious enough,
Okay.
And you cannot cover things with just a layer of money.
Yeah.
You need basic reforms in order to really bring the green transformation into place and
strive to implement something bold.
And yes, and of course it has to do with money, but not in the form of subsidies, more in the form of guiding the right technologies, and also, of course, putting extra burden on the CO2 emissions, because finally that's all we want to do is reduce the CO2 emissions, and this has to be much more expensive. And there's, of course, a conflict of interest because the first, talking about merit order, first priority is reviving the German industry, no matter what.
Exactly.
And then second, third, and so on. And of course, climate change plays a very important role,
Yeah.
But that's obvious, we have to bring all that energy security and affordability and so under one umbrella. So he only has to select the right people as ministers, state secretaries, and consultants.
Going after it, yeah. So you will have a role, I'm sure. And as long as you have a role, I think we can also trust that things at least will people have to listen to your voice, and this is of value. We have talked more or less about the entire world, but we left one part away. This is Asia. I think you also have deep insights in what's going on in China and in other Asian regions. And as far as I see it, is they also have a very aggressive agenda and pursuing it with below the headlines. What is your view? Are they doing things better, or what is different?
China is driving the energy transition.
Full stop.
Full stop. Globally. we shouldn't be, confuse ourselves with anything different. They do it. And it's the sheer market size they have. Some people think it's all subsidized by government and so on. So it's not. They have now 20 companies, like in the electrolyzer field for hydrogen production, of 1 gigawatt production capacity each, and they can ramp up. They can double within a year, so they can just do it. And they hydrogen is in the new 5 years plan as considered as one of the most important or whatever energy carrier. So they
even have a new law, right? Saying that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's fully acknowledged that hydrogen is absolutely needed for all sectors, industry, transport, heating and cooling and so on, So therefore, the nice thing about China is it's all known because they write it down in their 5 years program. You only have to read it,
So, and believe it, right?
And so because sometimes people seem to be surprised. Oh, China, what are they doing? No, it's all known, So, and they stick to their vision usually, and so therefore they bring down the cost. And either we are competitive or we are out of the market, So that's one thing again. So we shouldn't complain too much about China.
Just do our job.
It's transparent, pretty much transparent. Not all, but I would say yes. and there are many also specialists in the market. You only have to talk to them, and I did some from time to time, and so all came as announced. So therefore, we should, of course, there is geopolitics and there are other things.
Actually, for the climate, it's a good thing, right? Because if there is such a region pushing that hard, there is a higher likelihood that we get into these technologies. But I think for us in Europe, we should also look after our people and jobs. So we need to compete, to stay in that industry.
Right. And hydrogen is something, as Europe, especially as Germany, we have about 40, maybe even 50% of the European stakeholders in the hydrogen value chain. The complete value chain is sitting in Germany. We have a wonderful position also globally. And with the proper market design, we can create our home market, with our own products. But this is something, talking about Friedrich Merz, he should acknowledge the strength of hydrogen technologies in Germany. We have the backbone.
Use it for our advantage then,
Exactly, right, the hydrogen backbone, which is the pipeline system, it went through Parliament. We have 9,200 kilometers being installed till 32, which is fast for such a transformation, right? And so that's a huge asset because everyone can build on that because it went through Parliament, the money is there and everything. And so therefore we can play a crucial role also as a technology provider, as an exporter of our technologies, compressors, and there are so many small, considered as small parts, bits and pieces in the value chain, and there are so many hidden champions in Germany. They should be protected and supported, and the best thing is to create a home market in Germany.
So not wait for the market, but create it.
Yes.
It's quite funny because when I was at Daimler and I was talking to, we were having a fuel cell project also, and I went to the head of MFA, and he was a very smart guy, and he say, if you're ready with the technology, go to the Middle East, they will create the market for you. That was his word. Don't wait for competition, create it. So I think we talked about administration, we talked about advisory, we talked about geopolitics. Is there anything missing in the hydrogen economy that you would say that we have not talked about?
Well, partnerships. That's something. What we are really strong also in Germany is having energy partnerships. Next week, for example, there's a Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue, where up to ministers from all our partner countries and beyond are coming to Germany, to Berlin, and we discussed that. So once again, we have a good reputation as Germany. If I may, so Fraunhofer also as a good provider of
it's very international
technological
also.
Solutions. And we have the hydrogen network, which comprises the knowledge of 39 Fraunhofer institutes in the hydrogen field. I'm heading this network, and I notice when I'm out of the door, I'm proud to be a Fraunhofer guy and having this workforce of like 1,000 scientists and engineers in my suitcase. And
it's quite powerful.
Yes, people know exactly Fraunhofer. That's something, And so therefore, I think we're in a good position. We should play this card. So
one thing we have in Germany this tool of H2 Global, and I noticed that you and your team did an extensive study where the hydrogen actually will come from and how the cost situation is. Can you share the main findings of this study?
We quantified the levelized total hydrogen cost of all products in 39 regions. Predominantly those we have energy partnerships with, like Namibia or Colombia and many other regions, 39, as I said. Well, there's not one major message. First of all, it's try to use pipelines as much as you can. That makes the MENA and West Asia, MENA is Middle East, North Africa, Western Asia region, as much as you can, because that's within reach for pipelines.
Oh, really? So we are thinking about pipelines to Middle East, not shipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a very big meeting with Italy and Algeria, Tunisia, and, the South Corridor.
Yes.
Connecting with the pipeline the production sites in Algeria, first of all, with Ingolstadt and Stuttgart and so on. So that's why there were ministerials in Rome with Austria, Switzerland, and Germany.
Yes.
So that's one of the pipelines. The other one goes through Gibraltar to Morocco.
Yeah.
And the third, or the even more, going to Middle East, Egypt, and
I didn't know that. Yeah.
and Neom, and so on. So
Yeah.
these are under development, I would say. So,
Wow. Okay.
3,000 kilometers at the most, and whatever goes beyond, it's better and cheaper by ship. First of all, it's faster because the ships, if you go through the ammonia route, that you can do it right away. As you probably know, is the NEOM effort in Saudi Arabia. So they will start the first ship end of 26. So or let's say in 2 years, we will see green ammonia from Saudi Arabia in Rotterdam, for sure. So because they're, you must know that it's a 8.5 billion endeavor, and that was
one ship or
no,
the entire
the whole project.
Thing. Okay.
8.5 billion. So
wow.
they installed 4 gigawatt, both wind and solar, 4 gigawatt in one project, Aqua Power.
And that has gone beyond this financial investment. This is really coming.
Yeah. They're more or less done with the installation.
Wow.
I think it's like 20 square kilometers of solar
cells. Massive.
And what makes it so attractive is that in the evening there are thermal winds from the Red Sea. So they start more or less when the sun sets, because these are thermal winds which are going from the cold sea to the hot mountains. And there you have your windmills. And as soon as the sun rises again, so it dies down, but the sun takes over. So therefore you have more or less base load. So it makes it very attractive.
Okay.
That's why the 4 gigawatt. And then they have a 2 gigawatt electrolyzer installation. So it's ThyssenKrupp, Nucera.
Yeah.
So the biggest order, of course, they ever had worldwide. It's the biggest electrolyzer, and from the hydrogen, with an air cracker, they will take the nitrogen out of the air and synthesize it to ammonia, NH3, and then this will be shipped in let's say 2 years at the latest. So that's the biggest start.
That will have an impact really to the entire system because the quantities are so big, right?
Yeah, that's the first. Big and small, this is relative terms in this respect.
Okay.
We need, of course.
It's still a starting point in the overall, but for normal people, it's quite big.
Yeah. But talking about Saudi Arabia, they want to have this project 5 times now. They bring up, and as I said, they're ready to make an investment of like 50 billion.
Wow.
In this field of renewables plus electrolyzers, and then of course at a certain point it won't be ammonia. It will be either liquid hydrogen, or if you have a carbon source, and there are many of them, as we know, you can go for methanol, and from methanol to jet fuels, sustainable aviation fuels. That's the next synthesis step. Then we will have more and more airplanes running on sustainable aviation fuels. And that's why talking about regions. Now is the chance for Europe to partner more with the Middle East, and because they are ready, they have the deep pockets. They're looking, especially with all the madness which is happening at the White House. Germany, as quiet as we are usually, are taking very seriously in this negotiations.
Oh, this is good to hear, and it's a chance for us to reorganize our relationships internationally, right? Without wanting to go into nitty-gritty, but I heard when it comes to shipping hydrogen, the current rules in the world say it's a toxic material still. Is that solved? Because it seems to be not so possible to easy transport hydrogen. You need special containers for that. Is that problem solved? Do you know about that?
No, I mean, what's happening now is most regions go for ammonia shipping.
Right, and that is quite standard.
Ammonia shipping happens every day.
Right.
And for example, in Australia, there's also a strong partnership with Australia. So they only do ammonia at the moment, because that's, in a way, that's the easiest, because all technologies are well known. They are affordable.
Yeah.
Ammonia ship is cheap, and we have thousands of them already. And the ship doesn't care if it's fossil or if it's green ammonia. It's ammonia. It's exactly the same. It lost its memory immediately as soon as it's in the ship. You know.
That's a good statement. Yeah. Okay, and now coming a little bit towards the outlook, I think you talked about people and you talked about society. What do you think is needed to win society for this hydrogen economy that we are driven to build?
Well, that's the most important point. I agree, indeed, because it's storytelling in a way. Finally, we as Fraunhofer, we develop technical solutions to problems of society. We have a workforce of 30,000 people, and we have all these new inventions and so on. But they're all useless if they're not picked up by both industry to make products, and second, you and I, customers. If we don't buy the stuff, then it's useless. No matter how good it is and how proud we are of our inventions. So therefore, everything has to be accompanied by communication campaigns of all kind, and this is exactly what is happening in these days. All these campaigns with disinformation and misinformation, and spreading stories which are against the common narrative. I mean, the facts are very obvious, and I would call them the truth. But there are powerful new narratives which question what the whole world agreed upon, like net zero as an example. And but it trickles down, the big picture trickles down to what we do every day, we consumers. How we heat our houses, how we use what kind of cars we have, and all that, So, and if the storyline is in danger, people behave as they behaved for like in the last decades, So, and change is always a little bit tricky, Some people are scared of change, and when people look differently, so they are dangerous, because they look differently, So that's all part of this changes we see, and I'm deeply disappointed about how these narratives are getting along, So, and that they are not questioned.
They are not countered, right?
Not in the way they should be. So therefore, I just want to emphasize this fact that we are only as good as we communicate with our new technologies, and so that's why also now the Green Party is greatly missed, because they put their fingers into the right spot, and people didn't like it, and so they vote for something silliness, in a way. But the problem is not getting solved by voting for silly people.
Well, I'm very honored that you are taking the time to communicate here, because I think this digital format has this advantage that many people have a chance to listen to your words. I'm here the one questioning, but I cannot resist to share a very emotional thing I experienced 4 years ago when I started Highfinder. I was buying some bread and came back, and then suddenly there was a hydrogen garbage truck getting the garbage from my house in Reutling with hydrogen. And I was talking all the years before about this weird hydrogen technology and the world that will come. But that was a moment where it was in front of my house, doing something good, no diesel truck, no noise, and I talked to the driver, and he was very happy with this truck. Yeah, so that was really seeing the hydrogen economy in real life at the people at my front door, right? And I think we need to communicate and share these moments that the people can start believe. Yeah. Coming to the believing part, yeah. If you could put yourself into the shoes of somebody who is interested to do an engineering career somewhere, probably as interested as you were after studies, would you still recommend, or what would you recommend? Should that person look for the hydrogen economy because it's an exciting thing to work on, or what recommendations can you give to the young people?
Again, as a merit order, I would recommend everyone to look into himself and herself and what is my passion. And that's the first thing,
Yes.
Only when you're passionate, you're good in what you do. And second, energy field is one of the striking, I mean, it's really, the whole humanity is in danger if we continue like that, So therefore, renewable energies is the future. I mean, there are so many technologies, we need heat pumps, we need everything. So we need a lot of modeling experience, how to model an integrated energy system with thousands of participants and storage and producers and all that, But also, of course, chemical engineers, because the molecular side, once again, 80% of our energy system, also globally, are molecules.
Yes.
They come from somewhere, they're refined, they are transported, and they're put into the airplanes and into whatever, turbine and all that, These are all technologies which will not disappear. It's just the opposite. They will just be refurbished to green molecules. And so that's a huge industry which is waiting to be conquered. It's the biggest business opportunity which we have in our days, by the way. So it's absolutely the biggest. If you don't want to, I mean, AI is also big, but this is a bit virtual, I would say. If you want to be on the real side of life,
it's
then
the biggest.
Go renewable energies with all its derivatives.
Yeah. Okay, this is a great statement. Thank you very much, Professor Hebling. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think that what I have learned today is that even at the highest level, there are very passionate people trying to be humans. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing all this knowledge.
Thanks again for the invitation, and let's both be as passionate as we are with our missions, so to speak, and try to reach as many people as we can.
We will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.